So when first of all, there are going to be problematic students in every class. Usually they'll sit toward the front and they'll be wearing green. Now, so here's the next task. The next task, the problem we run into, or I shouldn't say the problem, the issue is, if you say to students trade cards, what will happen is, quite frankly, and I hate to pick on you, but it'll happen right here, is that the students will just trade cards around the table, and they won't stop to really think at first, is if you make 6 trades around the table, you pretty much know where the card came from. So what I usually tell students is, if you're in a class with tables, the first trade should not be anybody at your own table, and after that it doesn't matter. If you're sitting in an auditorium, fixed seat auditorium with anywhere from 50 to 500 people, biggest class I've ever done this with, by the way, was 800. Smallest group I've ever done it with was 12. At less than 12, the probability doesn't work out so well. So it works for any size group. If you're in an auditorium, though, the first trade shouldn't be anybody you're immediately adjacent to. The students can figure that one out pretty quickly. So not at your own table or immediately adjacent to. Last thing I do need to tell you, in this size group, I don't worry about it too much, but in smaller groups, if you happen to get your own card back, nobody will know unless you say, hey look, I got my own card back. In which case the bright folks will figure it out. If you do want to, you can keep that card, or you could pass one more time and just pass it away. Nobody's going to know. You do a 7th pass is fine. If you keep your own card, only keep it if you're a really good actor, because the next phase is we're going to talk about the cards, and you have to say, oh, well, this one is particularly fascinating. And then you have to explain how great it is. Okay, so the next thing in this whole gig is we're going to stand up. Don't trade your first trade, nobody at your own table. Try 6 exchanges with different people. Just walk around and change. Okay. Before I lose the moment, doesn't that physiologically just feel good to move? So thank you. This is one of the things I will do is if I'm teaching a class that goes more than, well actually, even a 50-minute class, I may do this one time. But when I have the 75-minute or longer classes, I'll often use this as a chance to just have a break and move around. Physiologically, there's some great data. There's a book called What's the Use of Lectures? And they track heart rates across class periods. And nobody, I shouldn't say, very few people die, but heart rates tend to drop as the class period goes on until something happens and they'll pop them back up. So that's that feeling you just had. I don't want you to lose that one. All right, next task. Next task will be at your table, discuss the cards that are at your table. And I'm going to tell you where we're headed with this. Spot right in there. I'll tell you where we're heading so you'll know where we're going. Discuss the card really quickly, what cards you have, what are the major issues, and the next part we're going to ask you to do is identify one of these cards, and you'll start looking at some teaching solutions to these challenges. So figure out which card your table wants to focus on. Take about 5 minutes to do this so you can talk about some of the different aspects of the things on the card. So about 5 minutes, look through the cards there. At your table. Now we're shifting to the technology aspect. So I guess I should do this, John, real quickly. If we weren't doing the technology, if we just had the index cards, what I would typically do is have at the table, each table would come up with 2 or 3 suggestions on how you would address that specific issue. And then you talk it through, and then we would have reporting out. So what did your table come up with? What was the challenge? What were your suggestions? What was your challenge? What was your suggestions? And kind of doing the whole thing, reporting out. And then at the end, I would collect the cards, and then I could see what the challenges everybody faced. And so that's the break we're going to do now. Spot. That's what we would have done with the cards to finish the task. So instead what we're going to do is we're going to shift it to the technology.
Are you saying you would have done that if it wasn't for me?
I would have done that had there not been all this fabulous technological advances involved.
Old school, new school. So what we're going to do is try to use the technology to stage that kind of conversation that you might otherwise have. Not suggesting that any one of them is better, but suggesting that what it does is it gives you the opportunity to think about the variety of approaches that you can use to doing something like this with your students.
What I want to say, John, while we're doing this one real quickly, is that there's different, again, constantly whenever you're teaching, you want to look at what's the outcome, what are you after? Right. So if what you're really after is a faculty member to have some discussions quickly in class, you may not want the technology, you may just want to have a quick discussion in class, you collect the cards, you say, thank you, that's good, let's go. If you want to capture this, and to have people see what's going on, to be able to synthesize it and see what's happening, then that becomes very difficult with the cards because you can't get that information shared throughout the group. So I think it's exactly what you're after, and so I think it go either way?
Yeah, definitely. So we're going to be using some tools to support collaboration and organization throughout the workshop, and we're going to introduce all 3 of those tools actually over the next 30 minutes. But the first one is going to be a tool called Padlet. So you'll see in the upper right-hand corner icons for the 3 tools we use: Padlet, Yammer, and OneNote. We're going to start with Padlet. We're actually going to use it to facilitate, as Todd said, our discussion. So we've tried to find some images here that we thought are playful, interesting, but I love the doctor, the physician in the back with the big spoon and medicine he's giving to somebody here. You can see it in the front. But so Padlet's the first one we're going to use. Padlet is it's an online whiteboard. How many of you are familiar with Padlet or have seen it? What it does is it gives you an opportunity to use your computer screen, the screen space on your computer, as a whiteboard, in a sense, where you can post objects. You have the ability to move objects around, to post a variety of kinds of objects, text-based objects, video, images. And it's a collaborative tool, and one of the really cool things about it is it does not require an account. It can be used without a login. And so it's something that you can roll out in your classroom very quickly, very efficiently, to do some collaborative work with students when they don't have access to each other physically. So we're going to do that right now. Although you have access to each other physically, it's difficult to get across the room and get to people. So we're going to show you how we are thinking you might use this. And we've created a number of these Padlet walls. Now I said you don't have to have an account, but you can create an account. If you create an account, then you can create walls and save the walls and give them unique URLs and then share those URLs with people. So I've created an account on Padlet at Padlet.com, and I've created 13 walls. The 13 walls correspond with the numbers that are on the little cards on your table. This is table 1, and then you'll look around and you'll see a number in the middle of your table. And we would like for each one of your tables to go to your unique Padlet wall. So the first one with this table, table 1, is Padlet.com/wall/TEISON1. And you just put your table number at the end of that, and you're going to get your unique Padlet wall. Okay, this is what a Padlet wall looks like. You're able to put these little notes on the wall. You can put them anywhere. Wherever you click on the wall, you're going to get a prompt to put information on there. And we'd like for you all to type on it. So you can see that we've typed the URL on there. Somebody has put engagement and interaction on wall number 1. We think it's pretty intuitive, so that you can you don't have to give a lot of directions in terms of how to use the wall once it's been created. You just click anywhere on the page, and you'll get a box that opens up, and you start writing something. Okay? And what we would like for you to write, Todd.
Yeah, so first thing is, somebody put at the top of the wall what the issue was that you came up with, or the one that you settled on. And then after you have the issue at the top, getting students to prepare for class, I'll just pick that one off the top of my head. So getting students to prepare for class goes at the top, that's the kind of up there at the top of the wall. Then at the table, if you've got suggestions on how you would facilitate students preparing for class, then you just post those individually around your table. So put as many as you can up there. So you have the card at the top, and then just post as many suggestions as you can come up with up there. All right, so next thing then, let's see what a couple of tables did. So y'all have different things. All y'all have different things, I guess. So let's go to table 10 first. Is it okay, table 10? Is it okay if we show your stuff up there? Okay, I forgot this. Okay, sorry. So again, what we can do real quickly is that we've done this fast. Okay. Now the idea here is we've got getting students to come to class prepared for active engagement. So get them to come to class prepared for active engagement. What types of things can we do? Consider some activities with group accountability. Assess prior to class, forcing students to prepare, allows the teacher to do needs assessment, ask each student to summarize. So again, real quickly, what we've got here in a matter of a few minutes is we've got a prompt, you've identified an issue. This card was something that somebody in the room said is a real challenge, so you can imagine in your classes, if your students are having a hard time with certain concept, the prompt could be something like, what did you find most frustrating or would you struggle with most out of the last class period? If you're hitting the Krebs cycle and you want to say, okay, what's the biggest stumbling block to really, truly understanding what this is? And everybody could write on the card what they think their stumbling block is. What do you think the most important bone in the human body is and why? And so they could write it on a card and pass it around or whatever you want to do. Tons of possibilities, and then you end up with real issues and suggestions. Okay, so let's go to number 8. So there's different ways of doing this. And then again, just like John's doing, you can post these up. If you got a huge class, you can take examples and start discussions. You also can look at that. Isn't that beautiful? Oh. You can put images up here. You can do videos. There's all kinds of stuff you can put up there. And one of the things I love to do with students periodically is send them on web quests. So basically, you can come up with issues in the class, you can ask them to come up with them, or you can just do it, but now we're into a Padlet application, and say, go out, you've got 2 minutes, go find something. So it's fascinating when you're starting to use your devices to do this. And if you do it well, one of the things I see on these cards, because I just mentioned someone, I have about 3,000 or 4,000 of these cards that I've collected from all over the country. And these are the types of issues that we come up with. One of the issues I see overall, and this one was what, engagement, I believe it was? Yeah. Yep, it was an engagement one too. How do you keep them engaged? And so there's a lot of good graphics and images here. But getting students to not be on their technology all the time, you know how hard that one is. Again, thinking it through and figuring it out. I sometimes have students go out, pull out your cell phones, go on a web quest, find something, download it really fast, and then identify the one thing amongst 2 or 3 of you that you really want to talk about. What's the common theme? What's going on there? And you look around, the next thing you know, all of their technology is put away. They're having a really good discussion about the topic. So that's how you get them to put that technology away at times. Okay.
So I just did a little adjustment of table 8, and I could do this for everybody's table. Since I created these and I have an account, I just went in and I changed the display from basically it displays where you click to a stream so that everything is posted now on this Padlet in the order in which it was put on the page. So when you create an account, you get the ability to make these kind of adjustments. And then if I go back over here just to this little wall, the settings button, layout, I can move it back to freeform, and it goes back to the original form that they created for them. So it's an easy sign up. When you do sign up and you have an account, you can save your walls, but you do not have to have an account to create a wall or to use it. To create a new one, you click the plus button, click modify, put in a title, a description. You can add a portrait, which is really, it's a very small icon that appears with your account, and then a wallpaper, and they have some different selections for the background. There's the layout button where you can freeform or stream. You can make it a private wall so that if you need to close this off to people, you can do it. You can send email notifications to invite people to it. Then you can give it a unique URL, which is very useful in a setting like this. Otherwise, you're going to have this long, jumbled number that people have to read and write down. You can give it a name that's easy to remember and save it, and then send that out to your students. And then if you don't like what you did, you can delete it.
Any quick questions about whatever happened here? Yes.
Does this work in Canvas?
Padlet is not integrated into Canvas. There is another tool called Etherpad that you can use in Canvas that is similar to it. Etherpad is a collaborative writing tool, so you can have multiple authors in Etherpad at once, and you're able to do, you can insert images and different things. And we're actually going to do a little demo of Canvas later on, and we'll show you how to use Etherpad. It has a lot of the affordances and functionalities of Padlet. It just requires all the login and the kind of things that you would do to get into Canvas. So I'm not sure, I'm looking this way because I think the question came from that direction.
One other thing I like to do before we move on, so just put you on the spot here a second. 1 or 2 quick ones. Anybody got an idea on how you could use this in a class or in a learning environment? 1 or 2 quick ones? Yes, go ahead.
Sometimes at meetings they do like, they have big poster boards around and people go and they have a certain topic for each poster board and
Yes.
people post their ideas about it.
Perfect. Yep, that's a really good idea. It kind of replaces that walking gallery aspect of doing it. Yes, in the back.
I think it'd be useful as in preparation for a lecture or something like that. You link to the Padlet and have them post questions that they may have, and then that way you're semi-prepared. You have a chance to look up and maybe prepare evidence, or other people in the class can answer those questions.
Yeah, I love that a lot. It's a really easy tool to use so the students can post something. You could put a discussion question up there, have them post it, and then when class starts, which is a great idea, is you could put the wall up there, put this thing up here, and then say, okay, let's hit some of these issues before we take off. So I really like that one. All right, cool. One more? Just one more. Small. Got 2 good ones. Pushing those up here. Yes.
How much problem do you have with it being anonymous and smart aleck class stuff up that's inappropriate.
So that actually branches into a whole other area, so let's not even address it. So now, moving on. Yeah, actually, that comes into that whole area of any times there's anonymity in a classroom and dealing with this kind of stuff. And I'm just going to say, I think it drops back to the culture that you've created in the classroom. I think if you've worked a little bit on the culture of the classroom and you've got a good environment with respectful individuals of one another, it's going to happen periodically, and I'll get to that in just a second, but it doesn't happen very much. I haven't had a problem with anonymity in the classroom, those types of things, with the cards or anything else. I shouldn't say ever. Every once in a while I do, but there's a whole area I like to look at with faculty development stuff, the critical firsts in the classroom. It's the first time certain things happen and the first time somebody does something smart alecky. You need to know that it's high probability it will happen, and so know before it even happens how you're going to handle it, and then you address it right away. So those are the types of things. So if I have someone do that, and be careful. Please do not rant and rave about it and explain how you're disappointed in the whole class, because you will end up being a YouTube clip. And if you want to see what it looks like, go to YouTube and say Professor rants over being mad about. Don't do it right now though. But you need to address it specifically. And there's ways of doing this, and I know we got to move on, but there's so many really interesting ways. I've had entire groups that have just not done the work. And when I've gone around and I've looked at the different tables, and you can start posting it and talking to people, and you see that I'm just going to pick on table 1 because they're right here, and you see they haven't done the work. I'll tell you, if you think to yourself, I will just handle this after class, you know what the rest of you have gotten as an image, right? They got away with it. So you have to be careful. On the other hand, if I come down hard on them, then the rest of you say, wow, he's really mean. So you want to be supportive. I am a giver. It's what I do. And so if a group doesn't do the work and I call on them, or I happen to see they haven't done it, or I walk by, and then if I see they're not doing it, I'll call on them for sure. And if they say, oh yeah, we didn't get to it, I will often say, that's okay. It's really hard sometimes to focus when there's a lot of noise in the room. Hang around after class and I've got some great tips for you. And then we go to the next group. Right? Now I've been supportive. And at the end of the class period, I always make sure to say, okay, I'll see you all on Wednesday. When you come back, make sure you've done the chapter reading and have a good time. Now, let's talk. And everybody else goes, ooh, and all I have to say is you guys are all okay, right? And they'll say, yeah, Dr. Z, we got it. And I'll say, all right, get out of here. But the class knows they've been held accountable. So the accountability is a really big thing.
And I think the other thing to keep in mind is tools do different things. They have different affordances. This one is the kind of tool that's useful if you want to get students in quickly, if you're okay with anonymity, if you don't have individual accountability that you have to deal with. So it's not as if you have to assign points to students. If you need to do that, you need to use another tool where students' identity is made public. And the Etherpad that I just mentioned in Canvas is a place to do that, so you know who's done what in there.